Aloha, Starseeds, superheroes, and magical friends, and welcome to the next episode of the Psychedelic Neurolinguistic Astrology Salon. And on today's episode, we are going to be discussing the royal fixed stars in astrology and how these stories line up magically with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles! Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles! Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles! Heroes in a half shell! Turtle power!
Although everything in the universe is in a state of movement, fixed stars appear to be stationary against the backdrop of the sky. Long story short, fixed stars are any visible heavenly bodies of interest that aren't a planet. The ancient Greeks believed that there was a celestial sphere covering the entire universe as they knew it. Their astrologers named this sphere the firmament. In this firmament, they determined the presence of wandering stars, which we now know to be as the 7 other planets in the solar system. The fixed stars are said to be glued to the very firmament of the cosmos. Long before there were horoscopes or even systems of writing, the dedicated priest astrologers of virtually every ancient civilization of which we have record carefully observed and analyzed sky patterns and attempted to relate their observations to the experiences of humankind under the universally held doctrine and the Hermetic principle of as above, so below. While there are 22 fixed stars of interest and 15 Benihinian fixed stars, we are going to focus on this presentation on the 4 royal fixed stars that line up with the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. And so that just reminds me, if you find value in this content, please do me a favor and click subscribe. So, the 4 royal fixed stars also line up with the fixed signs of Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius. I did a deep dive of the royal stars in a previous presentation. I will link to that in the description and the show notes. But today is going to be a deep focus on the stories about the Watchers, the warrior kings of the cosmos, and how they relate to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So much fun coming up. Let's go. Okay, my friends, welcome to my presentation all about the royal fixed stars in astrology, namely the royal fixed signs in astrology, and how these signs and personalities line up with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So as you can see, this presentation is very 8-bit, very video game focused, because from a psychedelic experience perspective, it's a very meta way of looking at the way reality functions and the fact of it's like a video game. And so the fixed stars as part of the mythos, I think that part of empowering us as humankind and a species is about sharing stories. And the royal fixed stars from a Persian mythology namely deal with being watchers of the 4 quadrants of the sky, and they're said to hold the pillars of heaven together. And there's also some relations to the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse and things like that, but I would like to think of them as more from a 4-direction perspective. They're also seen as being the harbingers of the seasons. So we're going to get into getting to know each of these fixed stars, because from an astrological perspective, as you guys know, and I've been hammering through everyone's heads, that whatever your blueprint is of the cosmos when you were born is exactly yours, and that includes the placement of these fixed stars. So for example, Mr. JFK was born with Aldebaran on his sun, and that indicates, of course, leadership qualities, but it also does indicate tragedy. And really, bullseye of Taurus, and JFK died of assassination. So it's fairly interesting how certain things line up. So without further ado, let's move on. Let's get into the agenda first, actually. Another reason why I decided to have a very video game themed presentation for the royal fixed stars is that it's very much warrior class energy. And also I'm going to overlay this video with video clips of myself and my fam playing the old school Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge on my Twitch gaming channel, because yes, I am a gamer girl. Well, yes, because now I can explain how each of the turtles are each of the astrology things.
Okay.
Right? Because Leonardo is Leo, which is fixed, right? Fixed sign of Leo. And he's the leader and Leo vibes, right? And then the opposite of that is Raphael, who's a Scorpio, right? Like darker.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a dark side and stuff like that. He's like got intensity, so they're like, oh. I love gaming, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the video game, has a soft spot in my heart because it, as an arcade game, was an arcade game that was in the airport at the Winnipeg airport. And so whenever we were waiting for family members in the waiting area, we would always play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And my favorite character at the time was Leonardo. That has since changed just a little bit. But let's get into our players, right? And laying them up with the royal fixed stars. So here we go. We've got choose your player. We've got Aldebaran first, and that is the bullseye of Taurus, and that lines up with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Michelangelo. We're going to get into why. I'm not going to jump into and going off on a tangent here. So we're going to stick with what's next on the agenda. Next we have Antares, which lines up with Scorpio. It's the heart of the scorpion in the sky, in the constellation. And this lines up with Raphael. We have Fomalhaut. I don't know how to say that precisely right, and that is Aquarius. It's also known as the mouth of the fish or the whale. And this lines up with Donatello. And then finally we have Regulus, and this is Leo, the lion, the sign, and then also lines up with Leonardo, the Ninja Turtle. So those are our players that we're going to look into in terms of the presentation, and a learning moment for us to get to know all about these royal watchers of the cosmos. Okay guys, let's get into each of the Ninja Turtles and the Watchers, the 4 royal stars. We're going to start with Aldebaran, which is the bullseye of Taurus. Yes, because I am a Taurus, and so reppin' doing this first. So when we played the video game, I have since changed my favorite Ninja Turtle to being Michelangelo, Mikey. I made a comment with my sis about how I made a comment to my sis about how, in the game, it's great that they didn't make Mikey chunky in this game. And she's like, what do you mean you made Michelangelo's chunky? It's just because Michelangelo is the one that likes pizza the most. Oh.
The window to hit him is too short.
They always do that. That's like their way of making it harder, right? Yeah. He's dead. Fuck that guy.
Look at Rachel. That's Rachel's job.
It is.
Right?
It is.
She would tell him. She'd be like,
Okay, so as far as fixed stars go, Taurus, first I should clarify a little bit. There are many fixed stars, as I said in the intro. These are the stars that line up with fixed signs. And just a little bit of a brief interlude as it comes to fixed signs and the relationship between alchemy and astrology. Now, if we break up the quadrants of the zodiac into 4, you get little triads of a cardinal, fixed, and mutable sign. And from an alchemical process perspective, you can kind of think of the cardinal signs as being an idea generator, the spark of initiation, that initial thrust. So you want to think of like Aries as that, you can think of Cancer as that, you can think of Libra as that, as an initiation. And then fixed signs are about that gestation and about that like bringing to form and solidifying and like pushing through, I suppose, and sometimes being a little bit too fixed. We'll talk about that a little bit as we go through each of these. And then the mutable signs are more of that distribution energy and being able to have that idea then be pushed out and distributed outward. And so the personalities related to these signs kind of line up. So as it comes to warrior mentality, I shouldn't say mentality, warrior characteristics or the archetype behind it, you'll find that fixed signs line up with this quite well because it's that idea of having fortitude and resilience. And when we think of Aldebaran is known as the Watcher of the East. In terms of the vibe of what Aldebaran is like and in an astrological context, as I mentioned, a lot of these royal fixed stars come with really large polarities. So great glory is possible, but also great tragedy, which is the way, I suppose, when it comes to very dramatic influences such as these on the chart. And so with Aldebaran, there is very much leadership qualities associated with it. Notable people, I think, that have Aldebaran aspected with them are JFK and Clint Eastwood. And that's to give you that kind of fiery call to war situation that comes with this sign. Now, this is a little bit in contrast to what Michelangelo's personality type is like, which he's kind of happy-go-lucky. He's very much the one who likes the luxury of the group. He loves eating pizza. He uses nunchucks. He's very diplomatic, very friendly. So that is very Taurian. It's about the ability to alchemize energies in a way that's constructive and to be a friend in that whole process, right? Because if we think about the Ninja Turtles as a whole, they all went through the same situations, but because of their different personality types, that ends up expressing differently. And Aldebaran, Watcher of the East, Taurus, the bullseye of Taurus, this idea of being a watcher and looking out for your friends, instead of getting so emotionally caught up in your heart and acting in that kind of way. So ironically enough, even though he's very much related to like food and luxury and all of that kind of good stuff, Michelangelo is probably able to alchemize a lot in terms of stuff going on and being able to pull that in for his friends. So that's the relationship between Aldebaran, the bullseye of Taurus, and Michelangelo. Okay, next we're going to take the opposition to the sign of Taurus, which is the opposite to Taurus is Scorpio. And so both fixed signs. This is why also if you're thinking about like synastry chart readings, this is also something to look for if like certain signs are opposing each other, because that's an aspect that comes with certain energies. So in this case, both fixed signs, Scorpio is Antares, which is known as the heart of the scorpion. The myth behind the scorpion has to do with Orion, where one of the myths, of course, there's always multiple stories with multiple meanings encoded with them, but the one I'll tell you in this case is where the scorpion was sent by Artemis to get Orion because Orion was busy trying to ravish the nymphs, some say the Pleiades, and so Scorpion killed Orion, and then as tributes Zeus placed them both in the sky. So in this case, the Scorpion is all about traversing worlds and being about that underworld, but also having that stinger, that real intensity. You can relate that to Raphael, and 8th house Scorpio is very related to the occult and the unseen as well. And so Raphael does have a dark side to him. There are certain storylines with Raphael where he deals with a darker side. When I read the comic books I read for the Ninja Turtles were the Archie comic book timeline. I have to do a deeper dive on the Ninja Turtles because, of course, there's multiple rabbit holes you can go through when you look into stories of these things. And the Ninja Turtles were created in 1984. If you think about, where was I going with this? The dark side. So basically there are two timelines. It all started as a comic book in both cases, but the original creators had their own storyline. But there was a storyline created for the Archie comic books, which lined up with the TV show for the first few episodes. That's the one I read because when I used to go grocery shopping with my mom and you're like waiting in line as like checking out, you would start reading one and you would have to buy it so you would know what would go on. But I do remember in those comic books there was a part where Raphael had this like dark side, a dark comic, or not sorry, a dark costume. It was kind of like, I'll see if I can find this and overlay this in this episode. But so this idea of being more of like the darker side, the darker warrior, the one that sometimes is a bit of a loner, has to do his own inner work to come back to the team. So his own inner work in the underworld to do certain duties to then return back to the team with that like intel for them to then be a team again. Then the learning lesson is to, of course, trust your team members, that they have your back. This is something I think Scorpios in general work with, the idea of being able to trust people, because betrayal, like, it happens, but I think it affects, actually I would say that it affects most fixed signs very deeply. So in this case, all to say that Raphael very much lines up with Antares, the heart of the Scorpion, and Scorpio, the fixed sign. Okay, next, moving along, we have the sign of Aquarius, which lines up with Fomalhaut, which is the mouth of the fish or the whale. Also, this lines up with our Ninja Turtle Donatello. Now, the reason for this is because Donatello is known as the brains of the group, and Aquarius, of course, is an air sign, and air signs are very much all related to the mental processes, and so higher thinking, very intelligent. So the air signs of Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, they are, of course, all associated with mental processes. And Aquarius, very much the water bearer, the idea of bearing the cup of water, the water of life, to the gods. The mythos behind Aquarius is that he is the cupbearer to the gods. And as a result, we have to think of Aquarius as being a conduit by which intelligence flows through thoughts come through. And so Donatello, as part of the group of four, the four watchers, it's all about the mental processes by which to, like, the check, the strategic check. He's also like the Batman of the group, if you think about the person who is coming up with gadgets, and all, like, of course, like every superhero team needs gadgets or things that need to be put together. He is also pretty nerdy. He's known as like the nerdy kind of one of the group. And Aquarius is known as can be aloof, a little bit of a rebel. Of course, Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, which is like a little bit of an oddball. And so Donatello, when I was doing a little bit of my research, is known as actually being April O'Neil's best friend. And I think that makes sense if you think about his personality type being lined up with the royal star of the mouth of the whale, and then with Aquarius. When it comes to the royal star part of this star is seen as a very lonely star. It's very much like off on its own in the night sky. And so this idea of, you could relate this to Raphael as well, or Scorpio, in the sense of a bit of a loner, but this is more along the lines of Pisces loner, because Aquarius does lead into Pisces. And so this idea of being alone with your thoughts, in a sense, and kind of feeling like you can't really relate to people on that level, and also having some challenges with really like feeling into things emotion wise, because remember, it is the mouth of the fish, the mouth of the whale, and about communicating out intelligences and less of, I guess, like feeling into things. And so there can be sometimes difficulty relating or making friends, because I say this because I also have some air placements, like things become very intellectualized and over analytical, and sometimes it's best just to feel with your heart. Maybe lean into your Michelangelo Mikey and like feel with your gut and stuff like that too. So that is the lining up of Fomalhaut, Aquarius, and the fixed sign of Aquarius and Donatello, our brains of the group. And last, but most definitely not least, because definitely Leo, I think, still traditionally is my favorite Ninja Turtle. I do tend to like the leaders of groups. So the Red Ranger in the Power Rangers was my favorite. Leonardo was my favorite. I love Captain America. I like Superman. So I like the leaders of groups, the ones who take on that role. That Regulus, this fixed royal star, has been said to, from a mythology standpoint, bring about rulership. It is very much associated with Leo and the summer solstice and the idea of coronation of the sun, and so lining up with this solar male energy. And so if we think about this astrologically, if you're born with Regulus aspecting or any of those kinds of energies, it's more likely that leadership qualities are likely to be there. But remember, this is a fixed royal star, so the duality still holds true, that great glory, you can be a great leader, but to remember to check hubris, because if not, there can be great downfall, or it can be to your detriment if you don't learn the appropriate lessons that need to be learned. And so coming to Leo, and in terms of Leonardo is the eldest turtle, and he's also the leader of the group. Of course, this ends up with certain conflicts with, namely, Raphael, but of course with any of the turtles, because he definitely holds himself up to this certain standard. There's a level of leadership where there's shouldering of responsibility and a lot of learning that needs to come from being able to delegate, I think. And also the same thing goes with all fixed signs, trusting in your team and not shouldering everything that is your role on yourself entirely. There is still a level of synergistic qualities, which is why there's 4 and 4 pillars. While they're all independent, they do work synergistically together. And as it comes to Regulus, this lovely fixed star, it's also known as being, I think it's 2 stars that are very close together. There's some fun speculative stories about how fairies actually come from the star system. We'll see. But in terms of how this lines up with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, leadership qualities, and the idea of kingship is very much there. And being an eldest child, that those certain personality qualities line up with the fixed star of Regulus. And of course, that summer level, we're heading towards this season right now, actually. So looking forward to it. Just to close off this presentation, and just to get in some juicy little tidbits about the royal fixed stars, and how do fixed stars relate to magic? I did a little post recently, I'll link to it, about the definition of magic and about how this idea of being in flow with the cosmic cycles as they already exist. And so, as I mentioned previously, these royal fixed stars are also said to be harbingers. They're said to be the signals, so like bringing the flag of what that season is. So if we think about Leo being of summer and Taurus being of spring, and so all of these things, it's not about they're the cause of these seasons, but it's more about a harbinger, and it kind of works together and in synergy with everything else that's happening in the cosmos to inspire change. No different than you wouldn't plant your seeds at the end of August. You would plant your seeds much earlier than that, so you harvest in August, because it's about realizing and waking up to the timing, the divine timing of things. And that's really where I guess the predictive nature of astrology comes into play, but it's more about recognizing the greater cycle and patterns of things, and realization and being lucid to where you exist in relation to that. So as it comes to the fixed stars, the reason why they're very important as it comes to astrology and antiquity especially is because they are said to be glued to the firmament. And what that means is that they are a static point by which you can always find your way. So a nice waypoint, if we think about a video game, and it's like when I play Borderlands with Narissa, I'm always confused as to where I am. I use her as my waypoint. She'll like drop a little waypoint for me so I can find where I'm going in the map. So no different. These fixed stars of the cosmos are also meant to be waypoints for us, so that we hold ourselves up to a certain standard when we're playing the game of life, so that we take ownership of leadership where we should take ownership of the leadership, or we're being called to it, not to be afraid of it, to have courage, to have strength, to be able to fulfill certain roles that other beings need us to play for them too, right? Because we're all co-creating this together. It's not like in a vacuum. So yes, we are all experiencing our own reality personally for ourselves in our bubble, but those bubbles also reflect off of other bubbles. And so how we see these waypoints being fixed stars, they function as a very cosmic standard point that we can all look to as a point of like, aha, we can kind of all adjust our instruments to adjust to aim in that direction. No different like a map when you're trying to take a journey anywhere. So more to come about each of the fixed stars. I'm going to instead next, I think, focus on cardinal and mutable signs and fixed signs in the context of alchemy and astrology, because that's kind of related to the importance of these 4 stars as well. Finally, for more magic, you can always check us out on our website at sacredzomalchemy.com. For more of our show programming and entertainment stuff, we have Golden Sugar TV, so I'll have both those links in the description. If you are interested in more astrological starseed blueprint stuff, I will have all of that info as well. And of course, if you are interested in more of this content, if you just give me a like and subscribe, I would ever so appreciate it. So have a great evening, day, afternoon, wherever you are in the cosmos, and I will catch you all in the next one.